Hi everyone, welcome back to Offscripture with Bec and Sam. I'm Sam.
And I'm Bec.
And you're here joining us at the Big Church Festival. But yeah, gradually the toilets have been getting worse. We did plan to give you a full update in the morning, but the morning moved so fast we didn't have any time to set up the camera and try and find a quiet place to record before, but we will sit down and give a full update of what we've been doing. Hopefully we've got enough footage. It's been really difficult to, I think, things have been going so fast that you forget to just pull your phone out and record. So yeah, I think hopefully we've got enough footage to show you, and yeah, how much fun we've had.
Yes.
Okay.
See you later.
See you in the morning. Bye.
I wonder, could you step into my living room?
Am I sitting on this?
We're going to sit on this chair.
Welcome back to Offscripture with Bec and Sam. I'm Bec.
And I'm Sam. And today we are going to be talking about our experience at the Big Church Festival 2025. Now, I know when this podcast comes out, the Big Church Festival would have finished quite a while ago, but you might be sat at home considering whether you're going to be buying your ticket for 2026 Big Church Festival. So let us give you our honest review of how we found it, what we learned, and whether we're going to go again this year.
And I suppose if you go on social media, you'll see all the the lights, the camera, the dance and the worship. But what we wanted to give you was crying kids, trying to set up the tent, the real life of it as well.
Dragging the buggy through the muddy pits of despair. So let's start with, why did we choose to go to the Big Church Festival?
Well, the Lord, obviously, but Brandon Lee. That's the one that did it for me.
There was a moment where I was in Portugal in the summer of 2024. I get a phone call from you that says, did you know Brandon Lake is performing at the Big Church Festival in 2025? And I was like...
No, and then Sammy was like, we're in.
We were like, early bird ticket, 43% off, I think it was at the time. We're going.
Yeah.
This was the first time Brandon Lake was had ever played in the UK. We don't know whether he's going to be back again. And I was there. I even moved my yearly holiday around just to attend.
But there also was other considerations around going to a Christian festival. We've got teenagers, and obviously there's lots of festivals that go on that time of year. You've got Leeds Fest, you've got Creamfield from the area we're from, and I'm quite conscious as I want to feed into our teenagers more of the Lord than anything else. So I was like, okay, do you know what? It was quite a big financial commitment. It was a big time commitment, but I was like, this needs to be worth it. So yeah, there was a couple of things that you wanted to see at Big Church Fest.
So let's get to the nitty gritty of it. One of the big things, as you mentioned, was the youth side of it. I was really excited to explore and see what that was like. Now, my daughter didn't want to go to youth, but your boys did.
Yeah.
And so Can you lean in a little bit of what their review was of the youth?
So I think it's really important to add context to this question, because my boys had not long come back from New Wine. The youth work, it was the first year they've done it at Big Church Fest.
Very
so
first, yeah.
They were learning as much as anybody else, and they separated it into sort of high school and primary school.
Yep.
Now, one of the big things that my boys didn't like, they're quite close in age, but they were separated. And my middle child was put into the primary age group. And the issue with that was he was with 4-year-olds and he was 10. That's a big difference. My youngest is 4. So although some of the activities were really nice and my 4-year-old would have loved them, my 10-year-old less so. And then he could see what his brother was doing in the tent with Ellie Lineberg, who was amazing.
Yeah, love Ellie Lineberg.
We do. My middle child was looking at Ellie Lineberg from the tent that he was in. So I think they didn't get that right. My eldest actually says as well, the teaching wasn't that good, which my son, he's not a massive worship fan. He loves theology.
Yeah.
He thought the theology was really surface level, and for a child who is actually in his Bible and he's just come back from New Wine, where they set the bar really high. They have a theology session every morning between 6 and 7. I'm sure it was great if you were quite a new Christian, but what they didn't quite get right, and I think this is a vision thing, they didn't section off the different groups. So if you wanted sort of light-hearted worship with a side of teaching, I'm sure it hit all the marks for you. But if you wanted more theology and a little bit of worship, I don't think it did.
No.
So for my boys, they didn't quite enjoy the youth.
No, not as much as we thought they would.
No, and I want to go and look at some teaching without wondering if someone's putting the finger in a plug socket.
Yeah.
So having that kids work there is amazing. I just think it needs a little bit more development.
Let's start with first impressions and arrival, because this was huge at Big Church Festival. Now, I went the year before, and I've been very lucky because the year before I went with another friend. That wasn't you. And we arrived actually really late. The queue was virtually non-existent. I prepared ahead of time and said to you, we need to go early. Yeah. I booked the day off work and we left early in the morning, but you arrived before I did by a number of hours, really.
So we got there as the car park opened, so there must have been only 20 cars in front of me. And there was, I would say, a lot of waiting. And I have 2 older children, but there was younger children there and there was no provisions for water.
All the water fountains were inside the ground, not at the where you were accepting your ticket. Now, we met some people afterwards. One of my other friends was there and they waited over 4 hours to check in. You got there really early. How long did you wait to check in?
2 hours.
Yeah. I wonder what took so long for you to be seen when there wasn't that much of a queue. And I do think that there's probably some logistic issues there.
So while Sam waited 0 hours, I started getting our tent set up and ready. Now, the biggest difference, which was quite a big inconvenience to me, was that there wasn't allocated camping spots. Now, I appreciate that's the same at all festivals, but it just felt really rushed, I'd say. When we did get our camping space, someone come directly in front of us and then told us to be quiet, and I think we had a little bit of giggling about it. To be fair to them, they probably maybe didn't want to camp right in front of us, but I think because the way it was organised, some churches took quite a lot of space up with like a lot of gazebos and things like that, and then there was, I would say, those who travelled on their own were kind of left with what's left, because the big churches all got there early or set up quite big pitches. Still friendly, but just a little bit of an inconvenience for me.
I don't find it that difficult to sleep because I've grew up around an airport. It takes me 10 minutes to walk to the airport from my house. It's very close. So having noises in the night, it's not a big deal for me. I'll happily sleep while jet planes are landing right beside me. But what I would say is, if you are a light sleeper, then you really need to be on the outskirts. Our tent was quite far. We were averaging, 50,000 steps a day?
Slight exaggeration.
Maybe, but it was a lot of steps.
Yeah.
Which is not always a bad thing, unless you have somebody in your group that does have any significant disability issues.
Yeah.
Then it's not as easy. The grounds aren't as easy to get round if you're on a scooter. There are scooters you can rent there as well, so that's worth saying. But what is also worth saying is if you're going to rent them scooters, they go quickly. So you may need a scooter to rent, and you will not get one if you're showing up on the day to rent it.
No.
You need to book them early.
They do have the disability area where you can camp, and I would say that maybe that's a little bit more organised than where we was. One of the people we
went with
had a disability, and
she couldn't camp with us because she uses a CPAP machine to sleep. Yeah, so let's go on to facilities. I will cue the videos of me not getting the shower, sorry, of the shower facilities. So I've just had a shower and it wasn't that bad. I thought it was absolutely going to be worse. So I'm in this little cubicle. I'm all dressed. I had just about enough space to get dressed whilst I'm in here. We had there's the shower. It was hot. It was clean. I have no complaints this morning. Let's see if we keep this up for the whole weekend, because last year it got worse and worse, so let's see. I've gotten up to go get my shower. I don't think it's going to be as clean today, but we'll see. Yesterday, alright, well, it's a bit grass. Yesterday I got in one first and had cold water, so just took the water. No water. Let's try another one. Alright, let's try again. Toothbrush. Okay, feels like it's been used. It's already quite warm in here. Well, I've just had a shower, but the queues are starting to build up already. There was none there when I got there, but it was maybe about 6 or 7 people when I got out. So that was on both queues. So it's worth trying to get down here and get a shower quite early. Everyone waiting to go. So, as you saw from them videos, on the first day, the showers were all right, nice and clean. But just by day 2, the showers started getting quite gnarly.
I am an early riser anyway, so I like to be up 5 and 6 anyway, and that's not a big thing for me. So I went to showers at 5 and they were hot and they were clean and they were fine, but even at 5 o'clock there was a queue. You know, that's pretty early. I mean, it was amazing because I've seen some really awesome sunrises, but did I want to get my kids up at 5 o'clock to get them showered? No, I didn't.
No.
And you know what? I suppose lots of people go to festivals and don't shower. And if you're one of them people, amazing for you. Love that for you. And less so. I would say, unless you were in the shower between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, it was not going to be an enjoyable experience for you.
I want to touch a little bit on the toilet facilities.
This was the worst for me about the whole festival.
The toilet facilities are treacherous at festivals anyway. Yeah. And I think yous coming off the back of New Wine, where there were cubicle blocks, where you could go to a flushable toilet, porta potties for an entire weekend is hard graft. I mean, there are not enough nose pegs in the world. To the point where wild wheeze were your boys' specialties.
I mean, they chose wild wheeze, and, you know, I'm just grateful that the Lord blessed me with boys at that point, but Sammy's poor daughter, you know, it was hard for them.
It wasn't without their injuries, though.
No,
I will cue the picture of an injury Rebecca's son got trying to have a wild wee. And decided it would be a clever idea to hop over some barbed wire to get there.
I mean, he's a middle child for a reason. Lord tests us in different ways.
Yeah, it's safe to say that ended with a trip to the first aid tent and a tetanus shot as soon as you got back.
It was, yeah. I mean, I think for me, I struggle with sharing those intimate spaces with other people anyway. And I think that's probably just my personality. So in our youth, Sam went to a couple of festivals and I never joined her. Like, it was just something I couldn't get over. I would say the toilets were worse than I expected. I think because off the back of new wine, and I appreciate new wine is it is a fraction of the people who attend. But what I will say is they got the ratio to toilets to showers, the people that were attending, right. And I don't know if a big church fest can do something about that. I don't know if they need more shower blocks, more toilet blocks. For me, I would say that was probably the biggest thing that would make me think that I wouldn't go back next year.
The toilets were not emptied enough.
Yes.
They were not restocked enough.
No.
And yeah, it was an event. And we got to the point where everybody dreaded the dreaded toilet time. There were a few people who had poo tents.
That is something I would consider. Yeah. I think I would rather, how can I word this? Have consent,
go on,
have
try.
Consent around mine and my children's bodily fluids and have to deal with that than half of the festival. And it was, when you go into the toilet, it wasn't even like, you know, like sometimes you can like just go in and like maybe squat or don't touch the sides. There was stuff everywhere. It was really poor.
For some people, that would ruin the experience.
I suppose you just have to maybe go and experience it yourself and see where you land. For me, it is a major issue for me. To the point where we drove home on the night to the nearest service station to use the toilets because I become unable to use them toilets without physically vomiting, which was just too much for me. I would love to explore. I actually quite like the camping. I love being around people, you know, here in churches. It was great. I love the environment of the camping. I like camping. I just think it's the hygiene of the facilities that needs improvement. I think that's where I land on that.
For me, though, the one thing I didn't notice the first time round, just how difficult it was for somebody with disabilities to get round. We at one point encountered an amazing woman who was carrying her mother on her back. And her mum was just this tiny little thing. She tossed her mum on her back, gave her a piggyback and carried her out of the worship tent.
It was dangerous actually at some point, and I think, yeah. But again, I would say if you're used to festival life, I reckon it's probably in line with other festivals. But what I would say is if you've got a disability and you needed to use a toilet and you haven't got the option to squat or you've not got to hold on to the side, I can imagine that would have been quite hard for those people.
Yeah.
So I'd say they were our negatives.
Yeah, let's look at the highlights.
What was the highlight?
I mean, it's been a very negative podcast so far. And I would say my first year of going, I had an incredible time. But this year felt a lot more taxing. So on that note, what was your biggest highlight?
So I love Brandon Lake. It was something I expected to be my favourite, and it was amazing. But on one of the nights, we ended up going to the campfire.
Oh, you've just stole this from my brain. You've literally dived into my brain, plucked it out and stole it. Go on.
And the kids were knackered because, I mean, we were doing a lot of steps. And we were going back and forth because there was like quite a lot of facilities down in the village. It was amazing. We managed to get them to the campfire, and the campfire was amazing. Like they do it almost like, they might change the location this year, I believe, but they do it like in an area that is like a verge, so everyone could see, which I thought was such a good idea. They must have really thought it out. I was kind of lying down on this embankment almost, and I had your daughter on one side, and then he had my middle child like sat in front of me, and then my son here. They all fell asleep on me. And do you know what was the saddest thing? And I think you see this as a mother. I was like, this might be the very, very last time that either your daughter or my son will ever fall asleep on me. And I was like so emotional. I was like, this could be it. And I was just thought it was such a privilege, and I was just like so grateful like to the Lord, saying like, this is such a lovely moment. And they were just like, I was like listening to the worship, and it was just such a godly moment. So I did love Brandon Lake, but I felt like, you know, you feel like something's like really like God inspired, and you're just like, this is family. Like I loved it. So that was my favourite. About you, Sam? Sorry.
So yeah, no, I was going to say the campfire, and I do love that moment where you fell asleep, but I was going to talk about the intimacy of the campfire.
Absolutely.
Because it is the campfire isn't just a fire that everyone sits around. It's bands or artists that have performed that day. Not the headliners, or in my experience, it's never been the headliners, but some really good, well-known artists that will come and perform around the campfire. And I just absolutely loved the campfire the year before. and loved the campfire this year as well. It's a moment where you really interact with the artist as well. So that is a lovely time. The spoken word tent is great. I only went to see Andrew Ollerton this year. And what I would say the biggest difference from Big Church Festival is that it's a music festival.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's a place that I would go to meet Jesus. And it's interesting because I do feel like the Holy Spirit was there. But as I've matured within my faith, I really enjoy Christian music. I don't feel that worship as much as I do when we are going to the traditional church and hymns. I feel like there's something more of a sacrifice in the traditional church and hymns than there is. I don't feel like there is a sacrifice because I'm doing something because it's so pleasant for me within this modern day life. But I didn't get that feeling the first time I went. First time I went, I was absolutely there worshipping. I was in tears. I was right there with the Lord. But this year I didn't feel that as much. But that's not to say I didn't have an amazing time. I had an incredible time watching Brandon Lake, which was the sole purpose of us buying them tickets. I feel like that might have even been once in a lifetime. We don't know when he's never performed in the UK before.
And it was incredible. It was
He put on an incredible performance, but for me, it was a performance. His preach was really good, though.
So what I was going to draw you to there on your preachers, Brandon said in his preach with Phil
Wickham,
Wickham, that he gave his life to Christ at a festival like that.
Yeah.
So I actually think it's an amazing space. And if we were young adults, I think, do you know what, we would have met the Lord. If me and you at that age went to a festival at 18,
loved it.
Honestly, like, it would have been right up our street, I would say. So I can see where Brandon Lake said that, and I could see the young people around me, and they were loving it, and I loved that they loved it. I think our children were probably a little bit too old to enjoy like the children's activities, but too young to enjoy the young adult stuff. So, and then we're millennials. I mean, we talk about that quite a lot.
Yeah.
So we love theology. We love your worship, but we love theology.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with going and having a good time.
No, yeah.
Like for me, I didn't have any more of a good or worse time than when I went to V Festival and watched Ed Sheeran, you know, when I was younger. Like, I had a great time at a music festival. If anything, I was probably well more organised at this as far as when it came to food than I was at V Festival or Leeds Festival when I was younger.
So we probably should touch on the food.
Yes.
So what we did, we knew that the food was going to be really expensive, and there was 5 of us, and we just didn't have it in our budget to eat out at every meal.
No.
So we took prepared meals. We did a meal plan. You cook some, I cook some. So we had a whole like roster of meals. So it wasn't like financially taxing to us to eat there.
No, we spent roughly around £100 on the food that we took, and it was more than enough to get us through without needing to spend extra. And now we did spend extra. We did have little treats while we were there.
Yeah.
But
it was a choice. We didn't have to.
No, we didn't need to. We budgeted enough.
So the food vendors were amazing. There was every type of cuisine, that one, and that you could have wanted. It was, you know, it's great. What I will say is Sammy's daughter wanted chips and mayonnaise, and there was some sort of weird agreement between the vendors that certain vendors couldn't sell mayonnaise, but they could sell the chips. I think that's bizarre. I think, like, I mean, we're at a Christian festival, you know, someone's mayonnaise on the chips. I feel like, you know.
Yeah.
So I didn't quite like that, but I mean, it wasn't out the realms of other festivals. I think we got 4 portions of chips, some with top and some without, and it was £30. So that gives you an idea of the cost. We wouldn't pay much difference at Alton Towers, so I don't think it's like overly expensive for like the type of festival or experience. But I'd just bear that in mind. If you feel like you're going to pay for all your meals at the festival, I think it would be quite expensive to do that. On the day that Brandon Lake was playing, I decided that it was really important to my goddaughter and Sammy's daughter to have a good seat, and just thinking about like our needs, her needs, your needs, and I don't like being particularly like to that close to that many people, so I wanted to make sure that we could watch Brandon Lake on the main stage and we could all enjoy it. That was my number one goal. So I was first in the queue of how many people were there? How many people at Big Church Fest?
Oh, 35,000.
35,000, and I was number one in the queue to get onto that field. And I got there again at 6 o'clock, so I was up early. Sam brought me a bacon butty, he's an absolute winner. And people were lovely in the queue when we got there. But then what happened is there was a disability queue on one side, which again, you know, absolutely, if you've got a disability, you know, you need different requirements. And it started filling up. So the security guard kind of said, can we let the disabled people go on first to give them like a bit of a head start onto the field? And obviously I was like, yeah, of course. But then what started to happen was you might have had one person who was in like a disability buggy or whatever, and you don't know what people's disabilities are, so you've got to kind of put it there. When my 2 sons come to join me, they said the Lord has performed miracles, because there was people in a disability queue who could sprint. And I mean, like, they opened the gate and they rushed it. And we were like, praise the Lord, because, you know, it was amazing. So we were like, wow. But then I was like, oh, this is a Christian festival.
These kinds of things do bring out the worst in people. Pushiness and a little bit of manipulation tactics, maybe.
I love that. There was miracles performed. It was great. It was great. When we went to the worship tent and we seen Brandon Lake and Phil, it was incredible. So for me, that high was so high that I come out with that saying, I'm coming again next year. Yeah. And I'd almost forgotten about the toilet blocks. You know, I was like, this is amazing. And worshipping with my goddaughter was amazing. There was so many highs for me. If you ask me, my highs do outweigh the lows. Yeah. And that's, I've had a bit of time to reflect on that. Maybe the Lord was trying to teach me something about humbling myself and maybe the standards that I live by, potentially. Sammy's friend who we met there, she was so gracious, and she brought us milk and bread, and she had these flasks of tea, and it was amazing. She absolutely made our experience so enjoyable. I'm so grateful for her, because she had a little bit more of facilities. And, you know, she'd come back and she was freshly showered and looked beautiful. And I was like, I envy you. Amazing. So I'd say, I suppose the question is, would you recommend it?
I would recommend the Big Church Festival. I would recommend it for for Christians who are searching for that good time that they are looking to share with other like-minded Christians. The biggest cohort of the Big Church Festival were young adults, and there was plenty to do. Even after hours, there was an after hours tent. Yeah. And it is a great time. I suppose the big question would be, are we going back next year?
I would say, for me, I've done it. So if I could book an Airbnb and the artists were people that I wanted to see, I would go back.
I can quite confidently say I am not going to Big Church Festival 2026.
Well, if you're not going, I'm not going.
And that is not because it's not a good festival. I think for me, I almost had that realisation that I am not that 25-year-old anymore. The places where I found joy from one year to the next, and I was a festival girl, but the places where I found joy from one year to the next, it's different now. And I would really like to try new wine and really get stuck in the theology. But most of all, I think this year is going to be a big year for us delving deeper into what is sacrificial for the Lord, because we take, and I think generally a lot of people take, we're always like, Lord, what can you provide next?
It's my shopping list.
This year is all about our sacrifice to the Lord as we mature in our faith. And even though there was some sacrifice needing to be had at the Big Church Festival, I didn't feel like I was sacrificing it for the Lord. I felt like I was sacrificing it for Brandon Lake and Phil Wickham. Yes. So, yes, I think we've got some retreats.
I mean, that is
in the
so
future.
Much more up my street.
throw the comment down if you would like to see me and Bec at a silent retreat. I know a few of our family members who would pay for us to go to that silent retreat.
Definitely. Our poor Rebecca would definitely. I think they'll do a collection for us. Just shut us off. It's just. I've recently been reading Henry Newham, and I know I say it wrong. I'm sorry. We'll put the link on the bottom. Desert Fathers and Mothers, and it's like a book like silence.
That is something we are
it's
not
so foreign to me. I'm reading it and I know why they're saying it, but it's just not landing. So definitely, I would love to do some like silent retreat, some because there's lots of different places. So I know if you've been on like maybe a silent retreat or you've been on a retreat, especially in the UK.
Yeah, link it below. Link it below.
We're in the game for something that.
Something that is hard, we're in the game for now.
Yeah, so.
We're in the game of sacrificial love.
But just not in the form of using a toilet with this forever.
No, but the toilet still has to flush.
What?
The toilet has to flush.
Yeah, our requirements are the toilet needs to flush. That's it.
Anyway, this has been Off Scripture with Bec and Sam. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. Were you at the Big Church Festival this year? Did you have a better time than we did? Tell us your experiences, because it's not all about the strobe light and the big the big shows. It's about finding your place with God, wherever that may be.
Thank you very much for listening. This has been Off Scripture. I'm Bec.
And I'm Sam.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.